When this robber reaches this apex point, which is, 3 to 4 yards away from his victim, he pivots and lowers his center of gravity for the beginning of a quick and violent attack. That action takes about 1/4 of 1 second. How long does it take our victim to even begin looking over his right shoulder? Or watch his shoulder and arm begin to move. He's starting to turn around 8/10 to 9/10 of 1 second. In just over 1 second, he's getting tackled and dominated. Action beats reaction. Hey guys, retired Lieutenant Todd Heaton here with Humilitas First. The clock shows it's 10:42 p.m. Clearly, it's after dark. Is this a high crime dangerous area of Houston, Texas? Yes, it is. Does this victim, this gentleman, does he have good situational awareness? No, he does not. Bear with my limited artwork and you'll get the gist of this. Instead of going hands-free with the pump, he's standing in that gap, and all of this metal framing around the pump is obstructing his view. Worse, it looks to me like his focus, his attention is directly on that little digital window that tells us how many gallons and how much money we're spending at the pump. Come on, we've all done this. Pretend like this dump truck is the U-Haul that is actually obstructing a lot of the view off of his right flank. If you don't see this coming before this point, you're getting dominated. The robber waits until he's just beyond the limits of his victim's periphery vision, or he's right on the edge of it. He concealed his intentions, which bought him surprise. He uses surprise, speed, and violence of action to establish dominance and pull off his crime. This is a winning tactical principle. Bad guys already understand these things. You need to be in the right position to properly use situational awareness. So if we analyze and break down this particular gas station, what's a better position? There's an L-shaped fence that runs behind this gas station, pretty much sidewalk to sidewalk. In the book Left of Bang, they talk about NLDs, or natural lines of drift. What that means is they're simply dirt paths that are worn down by the locals, frequently using this kind of a shortcut. There are times it might not be the shortest route, but it'll offer other advantages, like concealing their movements from certain angles that they're trying to target until they reach that last blind corner. I don't have any affiliate relationships with that book, but I do recommend it as it's a good way to get a number of the basics that relate to avoiding that deadly confrontation in the first place, or being prepared if you can't avoid it. So these dirt paths are going to be really hard to identify at nighttime. But I'll tell you what's very easy to identify, and that is, where are your nearest blind corners? Where do you have long, unobstructed sight lines? You're going to have to give more attention to the blind corners, but at the same time, you can't completely ignore the long sight lines because things can change quickly. All the more with approaching vehicles, because those vehicles can suddenly stop and people jump out and run up, and now you got a robbery problem. So what's a better position and why? Well, first, pay at the pump. That way, if you see somebody you have concerns about approaching, just immediately stop pumping, rack the pump, get in your car and drive away. Use the hands-free feature so that you can step back to a position where you can now see that blind corner on the south side of the lot. I'm only putting enough gas in my car to get me to a better location. That is going to take a lot less time than standing there trying to fill the tank all the way to the top. While I'm waiting this very short amount of time, I'm going to move around a little bit so I can continue to monitor that other blind corner. Stepping back away from the pump also removes that temptation to play the how many gallons do I think I need here game. Depending upon the pump being used, it's going to be somewhere between 20 and 45 seconds, and I'm going to take a quick glance. At that point, I should be somewhere in between 2 and 3 gallons, which also is going to depend upon what kind of mileage you get and how far it is to that next safer location. You can ballpark that math in your head before you even stop to get gas. What you need to remember is this is a high crime dangerous area, so we need to be directing our attention and focus towards incoming or outgoing potential threats that are compressing time and distance with us, with our current position. As it relates to avoiding a deadly confrontation, here's 3 principles. Think of this like a quick NASCAR pit stop. Learn how to be exceedingly efficient during transitions. Pay attention for emerging threats and use good tactical staging or positioning. On the other hand, as it relates to dealing with the deadly confrontation that cannot be avoided, here are another 3 principles. Number 1, face your threat. Permitting an unjust criminal aggressor to gain an escort or a rear ambush position, well, that just lets him stack the odds against you facing your threat. That takes it down to a 50-50 proposition, everything else being equal. He might get hurt. He might get killed. He might go to prison. I'll put a link in the comments to a recent humbling experience where my planning broke down through distraction and I had to stop in a high crime dangerous area to get gas after dark on a Saturday night. What if I don't see this guy until he gets to this point? So number 2 is to expand distance. I'm going to step over the hose and move away from him, turning to face the threat. Number 3 is to move in a direction offline with the potential threat that's going to show pursuit on his part. This is another fact that you can stack for the legal battlefield that's going to follow. If you have to use whatever appropriate level of force is necessary, that might be non-lethal, like pepper spray, that might be lethal, like a firearm. Up until this point, when he pivots about 90 degrees, cutting in, he could just be moving across this lot. But once he makes that sharp turn and begins directly following me, following the direction I just moved, well, that shows pursuit. That's going to be of great benefit on the legal battlefield, in part because it shows that I tried to avoid this, and it also serves to expand distance. Distance buys me reactionary time. If the first time I see this guy is at this point, then leaving is no longer an option. Why? I only have about 4 seconds until he's in a position to launch his violent attack. Those 4 seconds are enough time for me to turn and face my threat and or move, expanding distance, showing pursuit, and removing ambiguity for that legal battlefield. On the other hand, by offsetting so that he can see the southern blind corner, he's going to see the transient male entering by foot onto the slot. How much more time is that going to buy him? To click off the auto setting, rack the pump, get in his car, and drive away. This video begins when the robber is about halfway between the 2 pumps, so conservatively estimating, I'm going to double the time. He's going to have like 20 seconds, which is more than enough time for him to get that car moving.